Hey everyone, today I'm talking about INFJ disappointment with romantic partners. Before we get started, I want to make it clear this is a video for INFJs and INFPs. I also want to say I get a lot of emails from INFPs who say, I've noticed in the beginning of your videos, a lot of times you'll say, this is for INFJs and INFPs, but you don't include INFPs in the titles. Why are you leaving us out? It is not my purpose to leave out the INFPs. It's honestly a space thing. Usually when you're making thumbnails or you're coming up with titles, you want to minimize the space. So I'm always trying to use as few words as possible, and that's why in the beginning of videos, I try to make it clear, hey, this is mostly for INFJs, or this is INFJs and INFPs. I also want to say if you are an INFP, and you have a specific thing or a topic or a question that you'd like to see me make a video about just for INFPs, please email me and I will make a video about that and put more videos out there for INFPs because I know you guys are just as curious about your own psychology as the INFJs. So today's video is for INFJs and also INFPs. It's disappointment with romantic partners. I also get a lot of emails from both INFJs and INFPs about romantic life, right? Like sometimes it's a relationship that's been going on a long time. Sometimes it's a relationship that hasn't started yet. Sometimes it's an on and off relationship. But I get a lot of emails about romantic, tumultuous relationships that INFJs and INFPs have. And I hear from a lot of INFJs and INFPs that there is this disappointment experienced with romantic partners, and the disappointment tends to be experienced again and again. It's not just with one person, it's not just one situation. It's something that forms a pattern. It's a series of partners. It's a series of experiences in the INFJ's or INFP's life where they've said, I'm always disappointed with romantic partners. If we stay together, if we break up, no matter what the dynamic is, where is this disappointment coming from? Is there something wrong with the other person, or is there something wrong with me? Now, sometimes there is something wrong with the other person. I will say that. Sometimes legitimately the other person has problems or issues that they're not willing to work on, they're not interested in moving past, and it's nearly impossible to have a healthy relationship with them. So that situation does exist, and that should always be taken into account when you are evaluating your romantic relationship. And I want to make that very clear because so many INF people tend to internalize things and always think that it's our fault and that the blame should be laid on us. So I want to be really careful talking to INF people about situations like these and say, hey, make sure you're slowing down and you're looking at the situation in such a way that you can be reasonable and fair about where blame needs to be laid. And it's not always you, and it's not always your fault. Sometimes, yes, the other person does have stuff that you just can't move past, or that they're not willing to move past. But much of the time, this pattern of disappointment with romantic partners, it comes down to our natural idealism, the natural idealism of INFJ and INFP personality types, which is a hallmark trait of our type. We are idealists. This is one of the first things you learn when you're learning about yourself as an INFJ or an INFP, that your type is called the idealist, right? We bring this to all of our relationships. We really do. We can always see the potential in other people. We can always see the places they could go, the person they could be, if they really wanted to, if they really wanted to work on their own growth and their own healing. So that's part of the package. However, there's a deeper layer as well, and this is the healing fantasy. The healing fantasy is something that we also tend to bring to every romantic relationship. The healing fantasy is this fantasy that our partner, our lover, whoever it is, they will kind of come in and fill the hole for us where we didn't get enough love as a child. So whatever happened between us and our parents or our caregivers, where we felt like they fell short, they couldn't meet our needs, they were unavailable, whether emotionally or physically, when we enter into a healing fantasy with someone, there's this feeling, and much of the time it is subconscious or totally unconscious, that, oh great, now they're going to meet all of those needs. They're going to be the person I need them to be. They are going to provide me with whatever it was I missed out on in childhood, whatever it was I didn't have, right? So maybe in childhood, you had a very cold parent, a very unemotional parent who could not hear you talk about your feelings or help you process them or help you understand them. And you're an emotional person, as most INFJs and INFPs are. We're emotionally centered people. So you grew up with this deep yearning for someone to listen to your feelings and someone to understand and someone to help you process them and kind of always be there for you in that way. When you fall in love with someone, when you think about someone coming into your life as a romantic partner, you will bring this unspoken and maybe unconscious expectation into the relationship with you. Oh, they're going to be the person who will finally listen to me. They're going to be the person who will listen to me talk about my feelings and help me understand my feelings. And they won't ever be irritated with me for being too emotional. They'll really welcome the emotional side of my nature. They will be everything and do everything that I was hoping that parent could be or do for me in childhood. And they will sort of make up for where the parent fell short, right? They will fill that hole. They will fill that need. And they will truly see me. They will see me in the way that my parent couldn't. And they'll be the person I need them to be. So around this yearning, around this need, we create this idealized version of the person, this idealized vision in our heads. Really, we will see them how it would be if they did act in this way. Or we might even read into things that they actually do, but sort of over-exaggerate them. So maybe the person does express interest in our feelings, but for 5 minutes. And we will just sort of store that up in our minds like, wow, they really listened. They really saw me. I felt so nurtured in those 5 minutes. It was like 2 hours, right? Whereas if we had been able to come down to earth a little bit more and break out of the idealized vision, we would see, well, they did listen to me for 5 minutes, but they only ever seem to have 5 minutes. And if I need more time, it seems like they get avoidant or they get irritated or, they start like backing away. They suddenly have something to do and they're off and running. And then I don't see them for another 2 weeks when I get another 5 minutes. The idealized vision blocks us from seeing things like that, realistic things like that, where, well, they are sort of giving me what I need in tiny little doses and tiny little breadcrumbs, and I'm not getting much more. So this will go on and on and on until we reach a point where we're getting so much evidence that the person is not matching up with our idealized vision that we can't help but face reality. And this can feel very hurtful for the INFJ or the INFP, very jarring, even disorienting, when suddenly we see, oh, I have been painting this picture of this person and I've been telling myself that they are able to meet all of my needs and they are meeting all of my needs and I feel so special and I feel so loved when I'm around them. And that's not actually entirely the case. Really, they can only give me a little bit of what I need and then they pull away or then they retreat or then they're busy or then they don't seem to understand or then they do shut down. They seem to be cold and unemotional, just like my parent was when I was growing up. And so when this reality comes face to face and confronts this idealized vision and the two clash and the idealized vision shatters, that's when we become deeply disappointed. We're deeply disappointed, usually with the other person. Sometimes, a lot of the time, there's not much awareness that we are experiencing this disappointment because of an idealized vision that we've created in our head. We tend to become very angry at the other person for not being what we needed them to be, for not loving us in the way we believe we need to be loved in order to be a whole, healthy person. So instead of this serving as a way for us to see the person as a real person and to realistically look at their flaws and accept them, it becomes just a source of anger and a source of upset and a source of resentment. Now, sometimes it's not possible to look past someone's flaws. Sometimes this will happen, this confrontation of the idealized vision and reality, and you'll say, oh, this person is actually a toxic narcissist, or this person's very bad for my health, this person's abusive, I've been avoiding it or glossing over it, I need to get out of this situation. That will happen. But a lot of other times, the person actually is doing their best, and they are relatively healthy, they are trying, they just can't live up to the idealized vision we have of them in our head. And we are unable to accept their flaws. We are unable to see them as a real complex person who sometimes can't meet all of our needs and sometimes does let us down. And that's when the resentment can really grow. And then we're expecting them to let us down. Then we're looking for it. We're looking for ways that they're going to let us down. So instead of having an open dialogue about what we need and how we feel and saying, hey, when we first got together, it felt like you really wanted to hear about my feelings and I wanted to hear about your feelings, and we would have long talks. And now it seems like you only have 5 minutes here or there, and that doesn't really feel great anymore. I would love to figure out ways we could talk more or we could connect more deeply, right? Instead of saying that, we'll retreat inside. We'll feel very burned and very hurt. And then we will just slowly have this resentment growing over time. And then the person's doing things and we're let down again and we're disappointed again. And it's sort of eating away inside of us, and we're not being honest about it and we're not talking about it. And then as our hopes crumble that this person's never going to be the idealized person we need them to be, that anger at our parents comes up. And this is where it gets really messy. That old, unprocessed anger and trauma from our parents that we shoved deep down inside, sometimes we don't even know it's still there, that will emerge. And it can emerge in a very sudden and a very fiery way. It can really just explode out of us, this anger, because we're not only angry at our partner for not being able to fulfill our healing fantasy, we are also angry all over again at our parents for not being able to meet our needs when we were a child, for not being able to be the parents that we always wanted or the parents that we needed. And then the partner that we have, or the person we're involved with, at that point seems just like the parent to us. You're just as cold as my mother was. You're just as narcissistic as my father was. You do this same thing that happened to me when I was a kid, and it always made me feel horrible. Now again, sometimes that is true. Sometimes this can be a learning experience, and we can really see the person's true colors and see, okay, this person is abusive or this is an unhealthy relationship and I need to get out of it. However, again, sometimes the person is a perfectly fine person. And we are caught up in the healing fantasy, and we're caught up in the fact that the healing fantasy is not working. The healing fantasy has shattered. It's not something we can get lost in anymore, and we're very, very angry about it. And then all this stuff is coming up about the past and about our parents, and we're just projecting it onto the partner. This can totally kill a relationship quickly because the other person doesn't know what they did. We haven't been communicating. They have no idea. It seems to them that suddenly one day we just explode like a volcano, and then we door slam them, and we never look back. And I will say INFJs will do the door slam a bit more frequently than INFPs, but INFPs can also do it. And it's very confusing for them. And they're usually left saying, I don't know what happened. I feel like maybe they were getting more irritated with me over time, but they never voiced why. And then suddenly they left and it's all over and they won't speak to me, and I'm very confused. So to make sure that we don't fall into this trap of the healing fantasy and everything exploding and we're door slamming people, leaving a wake of broken hearts in our trail, we really want to endeavor to see people as real people. This is hard for INFJs and INFPs. This is real hard for us, but we really want to try to see people as real people and not lose ourselves in the fantasy, not lose ourselves in this story that this person is going to fulfill everything we ever needed. They're going to complete us. We are going to feel whole now that we are with them in a relationship. They are going to heal us, like all of this stuff. This is hard too, because in popular culture, this message is really pushed that another person can complete you, right? I think it's in that movie, Jerry Maguire, You Complete Me. In certain ways, that's maybe like kind of fun in a romantic comedy. Maybe that's like an appropriate line. But in real life, No one else can complete you. And when you try to make someone else complete you, it ends in disaster. It ends in a lot of resentment and a lot of confusion and a lot of messiness on both sides. And it can end in the ruins of a relationship. So what you want to do is you want to be on the lookout for how you're thinking about the person. If you hear the words always or never, they never do this, they always do that, they always do that, right? Slow down and look at what you're thinking about the person and question yourself. Is it realistic? Are the thoughts you're having about the person realistic? What kind of expectations do you have of them? How are you going to feel if they don't rise to your expectations? Are you going to be able to handle the disappointment? Are you going to be able to communicate those expectations to them and have a reality check-in about it? This is how you avoid the trap of the healing fantasy if you are an INFJ or an INFP. If you found this video helpful, please like the video and please subscribe to my channel. I do all sorts of videos on all sorts of topics for INFJs and INFPs. And like I said in the beginning of the video, if you have a topic or a question and you'd like to see me do a video on it, please email me. There's a contact form on my website, laurensapala.com. Please also sign up for my email list. You get a free book that is helpful to writers, but also INFJs and INFPs overall. And you will get lots of announcements and notifications about classes I'm teaching, free resources I share, all sorts of recommendations, all sorts of good stuff. But you have to be on the email list to get it because I rarely update my website. I just taught a class and someone asked, is that a marketing strategy of yours? And I said, no, it's just very hard for me to work on my website. So my website is not updated very frequently, but I do send frequent newsletters. So if you want to stay in the loop, you'll find the link below. Please sign up for my newsletter. Thanks so much, everyone. I'll see you next time.